Okay, starting with the next problem, which is a proof. To prove two triangles are congruent, we are always going to start with the given information. Is it something you have to start with? No. So we're going to say B is the midpoint of segment AC, given. And segment AD is congruent to segment CD, given. Now, to prove two triangles are congruent, I'm just going to skip some space and say triangle ABD and triangle CBD are going to be congruent. So triangle ABD is going to be congruent to triangle CBD. And to prove two triangles are congruent, for the most part, you need three statements of congruency. So I already have one given, so I'm going to simply go back here and state we need two more statements of congruency, and that will probably be enough to complete the proof. So this is one statement of congruency right here, which was given, and that's a pair of corresponding sides that's congruent. So I'm just going to put a letter S over to the side. So technically I'm 1/3 of the way completed the proof because I have one of the three statements of congruency that I need. Then I'm going to try to come up with two more statements of congruency, either about sides or angles, corresponding sides or corresponding angles from one triangle to the other. So first thing I'm going to state is, based on the fact that we have a midpoint, if B is the midpoint of segment AC, then segment AB has to be congruent to segment CB. So I'm going to write that down. Segment AB is congruent to segment CB. Why? Because it's the midpoint. Definition of a midpoint. So that gives me a second statement of congruency. And that happens to be a pair of sides congruent from one triangle to the other. So now I'm 2/3 of the way finished the proof. So I look at the diagram and I say I have to come up with one more statement of congruency, and I notice that segment BD is a side for each of the two triangles. So any segment, BD being the one we want right now, it has to be congruent to itself, and we always refer to that as being the reflexive property of congruency. So therefore BD is a side for one triangle, and it's also a side for the other triangle. So there's our last reason. We have three pairs of corresponding sides from one triangle congruent to the corresponding parts for the other triangles. So it's side, side, side. Postulate states the triangles are congruent. Next on our review, we have, based on the fact that we could find congruent triangles based on these two segments being congruent, we have, if two sides are congruent, as indicated here by the markings, then there has to be two corresponding angles that are congruent. The angles are going to be opposite the congruent sides, so that means this 63 and this x have to be equal. And now that we know two angles from a triangle, we can find the third angle by saying the first two angles, 63 and 63, add to equal 126. So we subtract that from 180, and we get the missing angle is equal to 54. So that's angle Y. And conversely, in a triangle, if two angles are congruent, then the sides opposite those angles have to be congruent. So that means 12 and x have to be congruent segments, so, or equal length segments. So if one segment is equal to 12, the other segment has to also be equal to 12. And as far as we're concerned, the 11 is completely meaningless for this problem. Hope this helps. Good luck.